This our leagues run on the God of Monsters Elite raid, and we were short players, so I had to get a DPS from my friends list. He also got a buddy of his. However, we were short a third tank due to the holidays. So we did this with 2 tanks, and I do recommend, if you can get a third tank, to run it that way. Not only will you be able to get whatever feats that you need in here with it on the second boss, it's also just you save more time. The thing is, we use 2 tanks, and it's kind of a bit of a hassle to kind of separate these bosses that way. I'm sure at some point with more practice it will be a lot faster and maybe easier, but we had to make do with 2. So what we did is we focused on the Gorgons because they stone, and if they stone the healers, that's an issue because the tanks aren't receiving those heals. If they stone a tank, you obviously have to maneuver, lunge in, pop a decoy, and then just revive the tank. But try to take out the Gorgons first because they stone in this scenario. After that, you take out the Harpies, try to mid-range them because their melee attack can knock you out if you get too close. Once those are out of the way, we take out the Minotaurs one at a time because they shield. So you DPS them down after the tank single taunts the Minotaur. And then you do that with both of them. After that, it's just the Phoenixes. The Phoenixes, of course, are proximity. You lunge in there when you see their green animation to stop their healing, and then you just DPS them down. From a Gadgets controller perspective, ideally what you want to do is you want to make sure that you drink a Vite Soda for a fight like this, as well as a compound. A compound will only, of course, will help you and the team. So it's definitely a bonus. The other thing is you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of vitalization trinket cycling. And if you've seen the video, I described when you would use it. Here it's a prolonged boss fight. So what I try to do is I try to use it on the 1-minute marks, which is the halfway cooldown on the normal trinket, which is my utility slot triangle, and then the pet trinket is the utility slot square. And you'll see me pop it on the halfway mark or near the halfway mark, usually within that range. And here what it is, it's if you had a graph, you'd see kind of spikes of when your vitalization and pot tick is going up. That, of course, is transferring over to the group. And here's the thing with that. You can go, of course, if the Gorgon on the stone phase, and if you could kind of predict when certain attacks are going to make the healer spam power, you could save your trinkets for those scenarios. But here, most of the time, I'm just cycling them at the 1-minute mark. And the other thing too is that I also use a Central City trinket. And of course that one you would save for oh crap moments because it has a longer bite buff. So you could keep healers not totally powered, but you could keep them on a buffed pot tick longer with that trinket, as well as using the Central City trinket. You activate it, then you tap melee or you tap square, a tap, not a hold, and that will put you in an animation that puts your hands up and it gives you back power. It's about a quarter amount. I did some testing on how much it's going to restore in regards to your CR and your vitalization, but it's incomplete. I never finished it. So that's in regards to your trinket cycling. Obviously, too, you can use the supply drops and take advantage of the other supply drops if you can't have the group drop it on the healers. Here, there is a point where we mostly drop it on the DPS just to get rid of these bosses. And then, of course, there is the... I don't remember if any of these... I doubt any of these DPSs are using a power return super. But if there is one that has a free slot, that's also what you want to take advantage of. Just in case. I'm not saying to be totally dependent on their supercharges. I'm just saying that it definitely comes in handy. Again, as a controller, you want to make sure that you're watching out for life spikes too on the tanks. If they're talking and you can hear them, they'll let you know if there's a hit that they took or if they didn't buff or something went up. Just kind of be ready to lunge in there with your decoy. Clip it with defib so you don't go in all the way, and then that will tank the boss until you can pick up the tank if, of course, they dropped. Or you could just kind of throw it up in there nearby just in case they do die out of nowhere. Don't forget that while your decoy is up, you are also mitigating 25% damage. And you're going to see the absorption animation on your toon. It's kind of like short wavelengths that are on your toon. That indicates that you have the absorption up. So, again, definitely use those fight trinkets and cycle them if you're on the mic. I'm on TeamSpeak, so you can't see me talk. But if you're talking with, if you're communicating with your group, let them know when to drop supply drops, power supercharges, any of that. And that's mostly, again, due to the way that you want to deliver power out. The power is very limited in this game. So you want to make sure that whoever has power supercharges and supply drops, because they return power almost instantly, especially supply drops, because all you have to do is run up and then you get this huge burst amount. Those huge burst amounts of power, anything in this game that does that, That is essential in restoring power in challenging content. It allows for spamming, essentially. That's the key right there. If you can get those kind of rotated, it definitely allows for your healers to spam the hell out of those heals in oh crap moments. The supply drops are essential in that. The supercharges to an extent do the same thing, but remember that those go up in ticks. Those ticks can range from 5 to 6 ticks depending on what you're using. Also remember that the battle drone, it's very similar to a supply drop in the way that it delivers a burst power heal. It's just that you have to wait 30 seconds in order to get it. And if you kind of time it on predictable boss attacks, in depending of course on the content, you could always time it almost perfectly to that attack. But here, because it's obviously new to me, or any other instance that you're doing where there's random boss attacks, it's a little bit more difficult, maybe moderately difficult, to kind of time your 30-second big power heal on battle drone with that attack. So obviously with practice you can get a lot better at it, but still with randomness is always going to be randomness, assuming that there's no tell for it. Again, just take advantage of the trinkets, the supercharges. If you can communicate power return with other players, even though you're a solo controller and you could be the best controller in this game, and believe me, I know almost everything in terms of power healing as well as the control effects and all overall controller role, it's easier when you have multiple players restoring power, just because of the way that power healing is limited in this game. That includes the cooldown on the instant power heals. Also with the gap between each pot tick, of course it's 5 seconds. All that plays a factor in terms of power healing. And of course the supercharges, that's another factor. All of that is extremely limiting, as well as the vitalization amount and the formulas. So you have to take advantage of outside tools, and even outside tools that can be offered by other players. You could essentially take all these tips and apply them to anything in this game. This is like your most extreme scenario instance that you would be in as a controller. It's like you're in a really long boss fight and you need to figure out a way to extend these buffs on your Vite and your supercharges and all that. And of course don't forget to use your weapon combo to regen. Obviously there are points where you're not going to be able to continuously do that. Just look at your healers power bars. You'll see mine that I try, when the healers get to the 25% mark on their power bar, I try to go straight into weapon mastery defibrillator for the instant power heal. Once they get above that, I try to prolong it or extend my weapon hit combo meter, because I want to build up my supercharge. And of course I'm lucky because I'm using a power set that has a battle drone that costs 35% supercharge.